Hey, Tony Gaskins. I want to talk to you today. It's a special day in my life. And you know, one thing about me is I do not like making a big deal about myself. And I don't know why that is, but I say, sometimes you just got to celebrate yourself. Sometimes you got to celebrate yourself. Sometimes you got to celebrate what God is doing in your life. And behind me, you see these four contracts on the table. Today I'm signing with Simon and Schuster, which is, one of the top five publishers in the world. And, I just saw them publish Kevin Hart and Michael Strahan and other individuals. And you see that long list and you're like, man, it's a lot of big names out there. And I had been against it for some time because for me, I transitioned from a different lifestyle, so after I got let go in the wild as a young adult, I looked up to my cousins and they were in the streets and and seeing that life. And one thing you always hear is cut out the middleman. So as a publisher, I own my publishing company and I was able to sell, tens of thousands of books, and you get all the profits. And so it just never made sense to me to sign with a major. And but in life, you just never know unless you try. And so it came time, and I felt like I should give it a shot. And it was an agent who had been courting me for a few years. She found me on Facebook. She just was impressed with the amount of shares that my posts were getting. And she wrote me and she was like, Tony, some of your posts get 25,000 shares. And I was like, yeah, the social media is something. And she was like, what do you think about writing a book? And so we talked about it, but then I was like, nah, I don't want to do it. And she was like, okay, it's cool. And we circled back a few years later, and I said, let's give it a shot just to see, because I've done what I can do in self-publishing. I've published, probably 10, 15 books, from small books that's 30 pages to, 150 pages. And so we put the work out there and, had a lot of interest, and we decided to go with Simon and Schuster, Howard Books, which is the Christian imprint. And I'm a Christian speaker, Christian teacher. You won't hear me speaking anything that is opposing to the Word of God. Anything that's not in line with the Word of God, I really don't stand for it. I don't stand with it, and I don't endorse it. You won't hear me cursing and acting like I'm a lost child. God has redeemed me, and I love Him, and that is the reason for my success, living a Christ-like lifestyle. When I made up my mind 2 years into my marriage at 25 years old to live like Christ, I stopped wanting to be like Mike and wanting to be like Christ, and everything changed. But here I am 10 years in, and I'm signing, this deal. But I say that to say that whatever you are doing, you've heard this from other people and you've heard it in other ways. Like, some people don't have their break until 20 years in. I believe that I was listening to Mike Epps talk about that. Like, it took him 20 years to get a major movie or something like that, and I see this over and over. And a lot of times we get started on stuff and we get discouraged. But see, one thing I realize is that if you're doing what you are called to do, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, then you really don't get discouraged. You get discouraged when you're chasing vanity. You get discouraged when you're doing something that somebody else made look good. You get discouraged when you're doing something for the wrong reasons, when you're doing it for the money. My first book, my first royalty check was $300. My next royalty check was $300. I thought it was going to be $12,000. So imagine that. So if I was doing it for the money, I would have gave up then. That was 2007. Here we are, 2017, 2.5 years later, and I'm signing, with Simon and Schuster to give that a shot, and I'm gonna push it, and I know it's gonna be way bigger than any of my other books, because to be honest with you, all the rest of the books I did, I really didn't even promote them. So I didn't touch 10% of what I could have done, because God showed me this major vision. He showed me the end vision. So the small steps on the journey, I just didn't feel like really pausing and tap dancing on it and really blowing it up and celebrating it, because I saw 50 books in my life, not 5. So I never had a book release party and did all of those things, and because the vision was much larger. But I just want to speak to you and say, you have to be patient on the journey. You got to know what you're in this for. You got to know what you're doing it for. And you got to know that it won't happen overnight, that you're going to have to put in work, that you're going to have to position yourself. I probably thought I could have been ready 3 years ago, 5 years ago, but I wasn't. And then you see certain people, you'll see other people sign. You'll see some people with major book deals and they literally have no following and they have no brand, but they just knew the right person and they were positioned in a way that the publisher can just completely, take and own them and build them from scratch. Other people had to build their brand to a certain level to get in position, for a deal. And it happens different ways. And you got to realize that the way it happened for me, it might not happen for you. The way it happened for somebody else, it might not happen for me. So you got to just trust your journey and you got to do the work. You can't worry about, how it's all coming together. You can't worry about that. You got to do the work. You got to wake up every day and you got to put your right foot in front of your left foot in front of your right foot, and you got to just keep going. You got to keep going and you got to walk by faith. And what you have to realize is when you walk by faith is that the vision gets clearer as you go. So you won't be able to see. If you can see every crevice in every corner and every part of your vision, then it's too small. There will be some parts of it that is blurry, and it needs to be blurry because it requires you to walk by faith. And as you walk by faith, it gets clearer as you go, and you can see the path more and more. So you may have an idea of where you're going, but you may not know specifically what it's going to look like. But you know that you're going to go, and you know that it's going to work in your favor. And you have to trust that process and trust that God will provide for you and that he will put you in the right position at the right time. And so here I am today, and I'm like, this is another step on the journey. And I can sense and I can feel what God has in store, but I don't really know. And other people on the outside looking in can look at me and probably see better than what I can see, because I can't see myself. And God didn't give us the ability to see ourselves through the eyes of others. So what you have to do is you operate from the inside out. What that means is you make sure that you're taking care of your mind, your body, your spirit, that you're taking care of you, and then you operate from that place. You're going to have some sleepless nights. I have sleepless nights because the Bible says if you slumber too much, that slumber leads to poverty. So it's some nights that he'll keep me up ministering to my spirit. And I'll have bags under my eyes like I do right now because he's been ministering to my spirit. So you won't always be rich in sleep. You won't always be rich in comfort. You won't always be rich in peace. But no matter what, you will always know that I'm going the right way. I'm doing what I'm called to do if you are being obedient to your calling. So I just want to share that with you today, that it might take you 10 years. And by the time my book is published, it's going to be 12 years because they publish, kind of far out. So it's going to be 12 years. And it's a journey. It's a journey, but you got to be okay with the journey or the climb, whichever one you want to equate it to, because the growth is in the climb. And the longer it takes you, the stronger and the wiser you get. So be patient, be persistent, and be prayerful. Hey, this is Tony Gaskins. God bless you. We'll talk soon.